Downtown continues. And now, correspondent Connie Chung.
What would you do if you found a magic bottle with a genie inside? Barbara Eden knows what she'd do. She'd turn back time. In I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden played a genie who could do almost anything with a magical blink of the eyes. We thought we knew Jeannie, but we didn't. Last June, Barbara Eden's only child, a son, died of a heroin overdose, and the world discovered she was keeping a heartbreaking secret, a tragedy even a genie couldn't wish away. No matter what she does, for millions of baby boomers, Barbara Eden will always be Jeannie.
Oh, good morning, Master.
Hard to believe I Dream of Jeannie only ran on network television for 5 years, from 1965 to 1970. It's been rerunning almost continuously ever since. This isn't what I think it really is it?
Yep.
That's the one?
That's the bottle.
Was that the bottle that we actually saw on television?
Yes, it is. That's the bottle that was in the very last episode shot.
Barbara Eden almost gave up her genie role because of her son. Back in 1965, she had already been married for 7 years to TV actor Michael Ansara, and they'd been trying to start a family. She learned she was pregnant on the same day the pilot for I Dream of Jeannie sold. Right away, she went to see the show's producer.
And he looked at me and said, "Well, you're pregnant." And he was joking.
Like a joke.
He was joking. And I went, "Yes, and I can't do your show." But I just wanted to let you know really fast so you could replace me, you know.
That's what you were going to do. I mean, you were going to throw away the program.
Oh, yeah, sure, sure.
But Barbara didn't quit. Instead, the network agreed to shoot around her. And for the first 13 episodes, they hid her pregnancy with props and veils. That August, while the series was on hiatus, little Matthew was born.
He had very, very black hair when he was born and very long black eyelashes. And I had gained a lot of weight being pregnant. He was a very fat little baby, so he was beautiful.
The Ansara's home movies tell the rest of the tale. There's Barbara, glowing, and a proud dad, too. Matthew, the center of both their lives. Did you want more children?
Yes, I did. Matter of fact, we tried.
But Barbara Eden's dream of a bigger family ended in heartbreak. After I Dream of Jeannie went off the air, she was pregnant again. But this time, she lost the baby.
The umbilical cord, in this case, it's squashed. So the baby was fine until the 7th month. And then he died. It was a little boy also. And because he wasn't getting enough nutrition.
Did you give birth to the baby?
I had to. They make you carry it. You know, you can't, at least at that time, they wouldn't force the birth until it was ready.
Forgive me, did this actually mean that you had to deliver a child that was not alive?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Eden says she never considered going to a therapist. In retrospect, a big mistake, because she never really grieved for her lost child. She continued working, but she broke down and wound up on antidepressants. Her marriage unraveled, and she divorced. It was right around this time, unbeknownst to her, that her son Matthew started using drugs.
Later in his life, yes, he did. He told me that he'd started when he was 9 or 10.
9 or 10?
Yeah. He played with some children on our block. But apparently the parents were growing pot in their backyard. And I guess that's when he started experimenting.
When Matthew was about 12, Barbara Eden married a Midwestern advertising executive and moved to Chicago. She planned to bring her son with her, but Matthew wanted to stay in L.A. And she says her ex-husband threatened to sue for custody. So for the next 6 years, Matthew lived with his dad in Southern California, while Eden became a commuter mom.
Oh, I would see him every 3rd week. I would fly back to L.A. And then I was working here a lot, too, so I would see him.
Did you feel as if you were abandoning him?
Well, I felt that way, but I think he probably would have gone to live with his daddy, whether I'd remarried or not.
Barbara Eden never stopped working. She starred in another television series, Harper Valley PTA, and Matthew appeared with her. In 1983, she divorced husband number 2 and moved back to Los Angeles to find Matthew a moody and withdrawn teenager.
He wasn't the happy, warm boy that I'd known.
While he was attending college in Santa Barbara, he nearly killed himself.
One night in the middle of the night, we got a phone call that his truck had been totaled, rolled over many times. Luckily, he'd only broken his nose and cracked his clavicle. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it except, God, we're lucky. But obviously, now I know it was drugs. Now I know.
How come you didn't know that he was doing drugs?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I think because we didn't know any better.
Were you neglectful?
Never.
Were you
Never.
out of touch with him?
Never.
But like many parents, she didn't recognize the signs. Matthew was 19. He'd been using for nearly a decade when she finally learned the horrible truth.
He was going to school, and he left his books here. And I saw them and went, "Go, how's he going to go to class without his books?" And got in the car, went down the hill, went all through that campus looking for him, went to the head office and looked. He wasn't enrolled.
You thought he was going to college every day.
Right. And then we had a huge argument. Enormous. Our first. I did face him with drugs. I said, "You're using drugs. Something's wrong."
What did he
was
say?
Furious. He said, "Why wouldn't I? I have a lousy life." I mean, really, you know.
Finally, Barbara and Matthew's father forced him into rehab. It was the beginning of a 16-year battle. According to Eden, Matthew was in and out of rehab 7 or 8 times. When he would inevitably relapse, she resorted to tough love.
He was told he did not have a home with me if he was going to use drugs. He had to leave.
And what happened?
And he left. And his father and I were frantic. We were looking for him everywhere. We didn't know where he was. We didn't know what he was sleeping on the streets.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew's bouts of homelessness tested his mother's resolve. She worried. Should she help?
The minute you know that your loved one is under the influence of this horrible drug, you do not support them. You don't feed them. You don't give them money. You do nothing. I couldn't go that far. I would always bring him food. Wherever he was, I'd bring him food.
Did your son ever steal from you to pay for drugs?
Yes, he did. He had taken money out of my wallet, out of friends' wallets. He had stolen silver.
You locked everything up?
Oh, you bet. I wanted to see my son, but I didn't trust him.
By the time he was 31, Eden says Matthew had turned the corner. He was serious about staying off drugs, and he was staying sober longer and longer.
And your son's name?
He became a dedicated bodybuilder. He really bulked up, shaved his head, grew a mustache, and started getting movie roles. Because he was so big, he usually played the bad guy. He appeared in this prison movie just weeks before he died.
Think you have to stand up to me? Gonna show everybody here you can't be punked. I can respect that. But I was trying to offer you some advice.
But more important than the acting career, he fell in love.
His life was on an even track. He had a lovely, lovely girl he was engaged to. They were going to get married in another month.
Even with all that going for him, Matthew found new temptations in the world of bodybuilding. He started injecting steroids. And on a night in July, he drove into this gas station. The security camera picked up his truck at about 6:30 p.m. 2.5 hours later, he was found slumped over his steering wheel.
And apparently he had taken a hit of heroin, and he hadn't had it in, quite a while, I guess a couple of years. It killed him. It stopped his heart.
In Matthew's truck, investigators found small amounts of heroin, marijuana, anabolic steroids, and a syringe.
The bottom fell out of my life. You're going to lose me.
But you had imagined that this could happen.
Oh, I lived with it. Yes, I'd lived with it for years.
Why did you believe that it wouldn't happen?
Because he was making progress. He was winning the war.
Can your life ever be the same? Matthew lost his war, but Barbara Eden is determined not to lose hers. She's on a mission to tell parents to get nosy, get involved, and get help if they suspect anything.
I was raised in a family that we all had our closets, our drawers. We never went into someone else's drawers, never. But I think we have come to a point in our lives now where we have to give up a little bit of that privacy with our children.
Just get in there.
You get in those drawers. You find out what's going on.
And your son's name?
You'll find information about what you can do if you suspect your child has a drug problem at abcnews.com. We'll be right back.
When 2020...
I was so overcome with terror and fear, and every time I opened my mouth, it just got worse.
Intimate Portrait, Bo Derek. Premieres next on Lifetime.
Next on Lifetime's Intimate Portrait. At the age of 22, Bo Derek became the embodiment.
Met Blake and came home with the part.
I can't exaggerate my reaction enough because it was immediate, overwhelming. I was stunned.
Her remarkable looks made her Hollywood's hottest commodity.
I was knocked out by her. She was so beautiful and so pleasant.
At the age of 16, she fell in love with actor and director John Derek, a married...
We thought we knew Jeannie, but we didn't. Last June, Barbara Eden's only child, a son, died of a heroin overdose. And the world discovered she was keeping a heartbreaking secret, a tragedy even a Jeannie couldn't wish away. No matter what she does, for millions of baby boomers, Barbara Eden will always be Jeannie.
2020 Downtown continues. And now, correspondent Connie Chung.
What would you do if you found a magic bottle with a genie inside? Barbara Eden knows what she'd do. She'd turn back time. In I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden played a genie who could do almost anything with a magical blink of the eyes.
And he was joking.
Like a joke.
He was joking. And I went, yes, and I can't do your show. But I just wanted to let you know really fast so you could replace me, you know.
That's what you were going to do. I mean, you were going to throw away the program.
Oh, yeah, sure, sure.
But Barbara didn't quit. Instead, the network agreed to shoot around her. And for the first
Good morning, Master.
Hard to believe I Dream of Jeannie only ran on network television for 5 years, from 1965 to 1970. It's been rerunning almost continuously ever since. This isn't what I think it really is it?
Yep.
That's the one?
That's the bottle.
Was that the bottle that we actually saw on television?
Yes, it is. That's the bottle that was in the very last episode shot.
Barbara Eden almost gave up her Jeannie role because of her son. Back in 1965, she had already been married for 7 years to TV actor Michael Ansara, and they'd been trying to start a family. She learned she was pregnant on the same day the pilot for I Dream of Jeannie sold. Right away, she went to see the show's producer.
And he looked at me and said, well, you're pregnant.